I've just completed the third and final episode of my Volkswagen Caddy Dream mini mountain bike conversion, and this episode has been the most intense yet rewarding, and the results are behind me. I can't wait to show you. Over the past few months, I've been on a mission to create the ultimate mini mountain bike van using my Mark V Volkswagen Caddy. The project started with the removal of a very bodged ply kit and was replaced with a DIY ply kit, a new floor, upgraded lights and a carpet trim to finish, which provides the perfect base for this conversion. The last episode was focused on the outside of the van, where we had a professional detailing and ceramic coating at GTECHNIQ before stopping at Van Style to do some stunts for the staff, but also collect some fresh upgrades. That finally brings us on to this episode, where we are focusing on the bike storage, which is going to be a DIY conversion, and it's the part of this project that I've most been looking forward to. Although I was instantly faced with a challenge, because as I started to measure up, I quickly realised just how small a Volkswagen Caddy is for the ideas that I had planned. This led to hours of scratching my head, but finally, after plenty of drawings and measurements, I had a setup in mind that would make this the ultimate mini mountain bike van. It's fair to say this part of the Caddy conversion has been way more difficult than I imagined, because there is just no room in the back of the van, which means that by the time I add in the bikes and all the equipment that I need to carry around, there is no space left for drawers, storage, bikes and any kind of setup that you want in the back of the van. But I do think that we now have a configuration that is going to work perfectly, and everything's in place. We've got an empty back of the van, we've got 3 sheets of 18mm hex ply, and we've got our drawings on the computer ready to hopefully try and follow. So it's now time for the first build laps of this episode. Let's get stuck in. My plan is to build a shelving unit on one side of the van with a pull-out drawer and space for bags above, and then on the opposite side have the bikes on a pull-out tray, as this makes the most of the small space. This was all going to be made from 18mm hex ply, which is hard wearing and it looks amazing. So with 3 sheets in the garage, the project was ready to begin. First piece of furniture is in the back of the van, and I actually thought before we started this part would be one of the bigger challenges. Basically, because the van is so short, you have to maximise all of the space, which means running whatever you put in all the way basically to the locks where the doors close. The problem with that is, as you get to this end, you've got this plastic trim here, which is a funny shape, it's curved, and if you just bolt ply onto it, it can look really ugly. But this has actually come out sick, and with this now being in place, I can really start to visualize how the project is going to end up. But this has been an awesome start, so let's carry on with this unit. Technical cut complete, and with the router I was actually able to tidy that edge up and it's looking incredible. But it's not about what it looks like, it's about how it fits. So let's offer it up and see how we're looking. Yes, success. That is looking so good. It's such an awkward shape. We've still got quite a lot of it to do when we get to the top of this shelf. But this has been an awesome start. So let's carry on with this unit. After a great start, I began day 2 by building the second storage unit. I was finding this hex ply so nice to work with, and the units were looking exactly as I had imagined. With the second unit now being complete, it was time to fit it into place and check our progress. That's now 2 units in the van, and this one we have just fitted is the new home for the power unit, which we're going to install in the van. It's actually in the perfect location here because it's easily accessible, so when you're charging things like iPhones, laptops, cameras, and most importantly the e-bikes, you can access it, but it's also out the way enough that things aren't going to get damaged, and it fits like an absolute glove. I was very worried about how that would fit down this profile here, but it's come out absolutely perfect. And that brings us nicely into the power unit, so I'm going to go grab it and we're going to do our first unboxing. This right here is the Atom Boost 2200 portable power station. It's one of the things that I'm most excited about with this van build because portable power is so important, especially when you're charging e-bikes, and this thing is a real beast. It gives out 2200 watt hours. That's enough to charge your iPhone 168 times and charge multiple e-bikes more than once. You've got 14 different outputs ranging from USB, USB-C and multiple plug sockets, including a very fancy wireless charging pad on top for your phone. And you can keep an eye on the status of the power station using the LED screen on the front of the unit. This 2200 is a real beast, and actually to charge an e-bike you wouldn't need such a big unit. You could get away with something like the 1200, but for my build and where I need to charge both mine and Kara's e-bikes, this is absolutely perfect for this project. And with the unit being built now, it's time to see how precise my measurements are as we can fit this in the van for the very first time. That fits absolutely perfectly and it looks absolutely incredible in the van. I'm actually so stoked with this because power is just so important, and this is the perfect solution, which means that we're now ready to continue the build, and we're going to be making next the shelving unit that goes on top of the Atom house. The reason I've done it in 2 bits is because I want it to all be removable, and if it's one big unit you can't get it out of the van. So with that being said, I think we should jump back into the workshop and continue the progress. Next up was one of the most difficult parts of this build, scribing to the big part of the bulkhead. With the bottom section going so well previously, I had confidence in this going well despite having a few adjustments. And after all of that, I now have what should be a perfect fitting piece of plywood. Let's find out. That is the absolute dream. Check it out. Yo, that's so sick. I'm so stoked with that. We've nearly finished this unit now, just a few more things to do and then we can take a look because this furniture on the side is almost complete. My plan is to have all of the units removable, so I am fitting threaded inserts, meaning they will fix together with an M4 Allen key bolt for a tidy finish. The next job was to router a chamfer on every piece of wood I had cut so far to offer a clean look, which was actually my final job on this section of the build. The storage part of this conversion is complete, and I couldn't be more happy with how this has turned out. We've got the drawer that opens, we've got power unit, and we've got shelving space. Absolutely perfect. But that now brings us on to what I think is probably the most important part of this whole project, and that is how we store the mountain bikes. Now, I've racked my brains a million ways to Sunday on the best ways to fit the most possible bikes in such a small van, and after building this unit we have got this space, and this is the solution that I've come up with. My plan is to use the remaining space to fit a sliding tray system for the bikes. One of the problems that I found with the van when there was no furniture in here was because it's quite small, you tend to have to remove everything to get to the item that you want. Now with the drawers, that's not the case. If you want spares, you can slide this drawer out. If you want the bikes, which will fit perfectly in here, then you just slide the tray out and you can lift them off. If they weren't on a tray, then what would happen is you can fit the bikes in here, but it's very difficult to try and lift them in and out the van. So by having them on a drawer means you can pull them out, get to the side, lift them off nice and easy. Here we have all of the final materials for this build. We've got the drawer runners, the hex ply, and we have the BIKESTOW, which is what I'm choosing to use to secure my bike in the van. So these pods are super easy to use. You just remove the front wheel and simply sit the forks on there. The adapters come in all different sizes depending on what size your axle is. And the reason I've chose the BIKESTOW setup is, firstly, it's super easy. So this rail that I have here is made for the van, so you simply just remove the hooks at the end of the van here by the back door and the rail will bolt on. And then the pods are super adjustable, so this is the tilting fork mount, which means that when the bars are turned, which makes the bike shorter, meaning you can fit it in a smaller van, the bike would lean over if the pod was upright. So with this pod, because it's tilting, you can adjust it in lots of different ways to make it so that you optimize space and your bike is stood upright and safe in the back of a small van. However, I've ordered this rail which goes across the full length of the back of my van, but with this design my plans actually changed slightly as I was going through it, and I'm not going to use the full rail on the sliding drawer. I'm going to replicate half one of these basically. But this will still come in handy because all the furniture is removable, so I can just change the setup quite easy. And if I wanted to run more than 2 bikes on the drawer, I could put this in and have up to 4 bikes across this, which is really cool. So we have all the materials, we've got the idea, all we have to do is make it, but there's one more thing to do before we get started. First cup of tea made off of the Atom, which means we are now ready to build this bike drawer and get the dream van complete. As I applied the final touches, it was hard to believe the project was finished. I was so excited to load the van with the bikes and equipment before taking a look for the very first time. To get to this stage has been an absolute mental brain buster, because I'm basically trying to fit everything that I had in a long wheelbase Volkswagen Transporter into the back of a Caddy, which is absolutely tiny. Every van that I've looked at online for inspiration, they've all taken the bulkheads out for extra space, but I didn't want to do that because of security reasons. And I'm actually so stoked that my plans and all my working outs have come to life and it fits in the back absolutely perfectly. Let's take a look then to start with at the bike storage. So I decided to put the bikes on the sliding trays, and the reason for that is because the first problem I come across with this van when it was just a panel van is when I was out riding I could fit all my stuff in, but anytime I wanted to get one bike out, for example, I had to get all the bags, all the suitcases, all the spares out, and if it was raining, which it often does in the UK, that was a nightmare because everything was getting soaked just for the sake of getting one bike out. When I measured up, if I didn't have the tray I could fit the two bikes like this, but to get them in and out, as you can see, they're very tight. So for example, if I wanted this bike, I'd have to get this one out. So I basically didn't want a situation where you had to unpack the whole van just to get one thing, and the tray completely prevents that because it just slides out, you can get to either bike, and it actually works so perfect. I decided to choose the BIKESTOW tilting fork mount, and the reason for that is because what I learnt with my previous van setup is that where I chop and change bikes very often, there was a lot of variables from fork axle sizes, different head angles, different sides that axles slide in and out, and these definitely cater for all these different scenarios because they twist and they tilt, which means that they will fit every single setup. Moving on to the gear storage then, so we have a nice big empty space up here for all of our bags, suitcases, camera equipment that we will carry around. And in here we've got another sliding drawer, and this time this is full of spares and tools. I'm just absolutely so stoked with the sliding drawers because it makes everything so accessible. There's no leaning into the back corner to try and find your tools. I mean, they're actually just right here. It's super convenient, very easy and very organised. And I mean, that just looks so cool, doesn't it? We've got all our spares in here, from spare grips, inner tubes, tyres, we've got bike cleaning stuff because that often comes in handy in the UK. You can fit a pump on top, and we've got the e-bike chargers, which brings us on to the van's power unit. To access the power unit then you simply slide the bikes forward, then you can get to this part of the van nice and easy, and in here you will find the Atom Boost 2200 portable power station. This is the absolute perfect unit for this van. You can charge all of the e-bikes and devices that I'll be carrying around with me, no problem, and it's portable so I can remove it and use it for things that I might want to use outside of the van. Then above the power unit we've got this shelving storage, which is mainly designed for helmets and equipment. That's one thing that I hated having rattling around in the back. There's a risk of like peaks getting snapped and things getting damaged. One thing I actually haven't done is plug the bike into the Atom, so let's give that a little go. One thing that I really wanted to create when I was designing the back of the van was the fact that the furniture is all removable, because there's times when you just want to have an empty panel van. Say I want to put like a motorbike in there, or I want to pick timber up, then the unit's obviously going to be in the way. And this removes so easily. There's 8 Allen keys, all the threads are properly screwed into the plywood, everything has its place. It simply just unbolts and then the furniture comes out and you have an empty van and it goes back in just as easy. And it's mad to think that after all of these months of planning and dreaming about this setup, the dream that was in my head is now sat here behind me, and I can go on road trips and enjoy the van. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this series. It's been 3 pretty intense episodes. I couldn't be more happy with the results. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Let's go. Yeah, I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it, fuse like a magnet. Lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shoot tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a